Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at the Fiat Panda. Hello and welcome back to Quarterlight. Now if you're new to Quarterlight, we're a car brochure channel here on YouTube, looking at car brochures from around the world for the 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s and sometimes beyond that as well. So if you're interested in cars, car brochures, looking back on cars gone by, really all about bringing back those memories, then please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. Anyway, back to today's episode. This episode's going to be first aired on a Tuesday. We call those episodes Take Two Tuesdays because we've been looking over the last few weeks at brochures that we first did when Quarterlight was just kind of like evolving, I guess, and we've changed things around quite a bit. So this is a brochure we've already looked at a couple of years ago, or 2 years plus, the Fiat Panda. And also this particular episode, when it first comes out, is also going to come out on New Year's Eve. So Happy New Year if you are watching it when it first comes out. Although the internet's a funny thing, isn't it? Time doesn't really mean a great deal because you're most likely going to watch this not on Christmas Eve. But anyway, there we go. We are doing quite a reduced schedule over the Christmas week and the New Year's week, which regular viewers will note. Probably also next week as well, and then we'll get back to our full schedule as well. So don't worry, we will be back to the full schedule when things settle down a bit. Anyway, let's throw the brochure on the board and have a look at it. So here it is, the Fiat Panda Brochure. This particular brochure is actually dated September 1982. I don't know if you can just about make that out there. September 1982, so quite an early brochure actually for the UK. The Panda came out in around about 1981, so kind of the early generation of the Fiat Panda. In some ways I like that because it's the most purest design from the original sketches, of course. We can also see that date repeated there in the code for those who are interested there as well. But anyway, let's move back to our front page again. So these brochures in 82 are quite a little bit of a bite-sized brochure. The paper quality isn't the best. There isn't that many pages within them, and they did this for all the range, but they're quite nice because they do kind of like show you the main points. In this case, like I said, the Fiat Panda. One of the nice things we can do now is we can actually zoom in, and the reason I say that, if we looked at the original brochure review that we did for the Fiat Panda, we can't actually do this, although we've changed things roundabout in some ways, and originally we can like give more information, which I know some people like, so I will do a link to the original brochure review where there's lots more facts and figures and sorts of things about the actual Fiat Panda as a whole. These days we concentrate more on the brochure. I'm not just randomly zoomed in here. I've zoomed into this unusual front end on this these early ones with kind of like the grille just over at one side and then the Fiat badge at the other. Quite like these very early ones. They are my favourite, and that kind of like love it or loathe it, very boxy design. But I always like boxy cars. I mean, I like things like the Nissan Cube, so I do like boxy designs even back then. And the advantage, of course, of doing a boxy design is it's more practical on the inside, of course. Very basic, of course, these early Fiat Pandas. They really was just there in a similar sort of way when we think about Renault 4s, 2CVs, Volkswagen Beetles. Just a vehicle just to do a job of carrying people around in the more simplest form, really. We can even see there isn't really a proper door handle, just this little insert here to put your hand in to open the door. But all those little touches actually add a little bit to aerodynamics, although you wouldn't ever think of the Panda being an aerodynamic design. We've at least got head restraints. We'll have a look in a moment. The seats are quite low quality though, and about as cheap as they could make them, but nevertheless we do get head restraints. And of course we get a hatchback. Hatchbacks at this time was what people really wanted, and then this sort of like lower section in a different colour. Cheap and cheerful, budget motoring, but there's something very nice about that budget motoring. Anyway, let's open the brochure up, because it'll show us some of the key features of these early Pandas. And key features of these early Fiat Pandas meant the seating and how you could move it around. Very much a utilitarian vehicle in many ways. It just was a small car that was as practical as they could make it in a sort of like a boxy design. So kind of like driving characteristics was really a second to this, the internals of the car, make it boxy, as much space as we can get in a small car, and then make it versatile by moving these seats around. But we'll zoom in on these images and have a look at them. So the first picture is actually showing the sort of regular setup, really, how it would have been most of the time. It just tells us the Panda swallows a family of 5 and its luggage, and of course in a very small space. We've got a nice sort of parcel shelf on there though, but we obviously can take that parcel shelf off and fold the seats. Sadly, it's not a split fold seat though, but that wasn't that unusual for the time. Second image, unsurprisingly, is showing the fold back of that rear seat. Again, quite clumsily folded back, but I'm sure that was as cheap as they could do it, sort of thing. And then you've got more room again. Nothing unusual about that, of course, but obviously they've made it as simple as they possibly can. But you can see it's a budget car, quite simply by all the exposed metalwork. And then the third image, they've completely removed the seat, so I'm assuming it wasn't held on by many bolts to be removed so easily. Maybe it just slid out, I'm not sure, I've never done this, but obviously they're promoting it as removing the seat, so I presume it was relatively easy. Obviously, because the rear seat was quite clumsily folded, it does help with the room at the back here when it's removed, and then presumably you had to put these bars in for some kind of like safety. Turn it into what is essentially a little van, and because of the shape again, I'm sure that was quite handy, although who actually did that I don't know. You would have really desperately needed it to be used as a little van to go to the trouble of actually removing the seat, finding somewhere to put the seat, and then putting these bars in there. So I'm not sure many people would have actually done that. Moving on, it continues showing the versatility of those seats with a very sort of 60s idea, really, of being able to fold all the seats down to making a bed type area, although you will notice it doesn't tell you could go to sleep like the 60s brochures used to say. This just says fold the rear seat down and 2 of you can stretch out in comfort. Only a small car though, so I don't know how much comfort there would be there, but they've certainly thought about these seats a lot in this car. Really tried to make it a very versatile vehicle, and it goes one stage further, where we can keep it in this sort of like V shape to carry such items as bottles in the back there. Very unusual idea again. And then there is one final image showing this area. It says, remove the rear seat and the Panda is virtually a delivery van. Please note, anti-scuff plastic panels have now been added to the rear of the front seats and head restraints. Okay, so they must have changed the design for this. These rear seats doesn't show the bars in place on this one there, so I'm not really sure what they're trying to say there. The other picture was probably more relevant with those bars on there, wasn't it, to show it as a little van. But anyway, really showing the versatility of those seats. And then the main image is really showing these seats as a whole, telling you can recline them, etc. But the first thing I notice about these seats is how thin and they are in the materials, and how cheap looking the materials actually are. I wouldn't imagine they would have been the nicest seats on a long journey. They don't look the most comfortable. We're not thinking French cars here, I don't think, but simplicity, I think, is the key to all this. It tells us the Panda is a product of its age. Simple and compact in design, spacious and versatile in practice. Comfort isn't neglected either, apparently. The slim cloth seats are washable, removable, and remarkably comfortable, so you can actually remove that material and wash it. So I think they was definitely looking a little bit at cars like the 2CV, at that sort of, simplicity, but also very practical in its ideas. We're not talking about comprehensively equipped here. You're just getting what you need. It says the dashboard is simplicity itself, a speedometer, a fuel gauge, all the necessary switches, and a comprehensive array of warning lights. A very, very simple instrument display overall. I mean, even the actual speedometer is tiny, isn't it? Very unusual in this, very simplistic fuel gauge. Very unusual, and then these very, very basic switch gear on the side there. Little stalks there, look very spindly, look like they'll fall off on their first touch. Shame it doesn't show more of the dash though on this picture, but if we zoom in on one of the smaller pictures, and it really is a tiny, tiny image, so I can't really clear it up any more than that, but it gives you an idea of how simple that dash area is. And again, with a very sort of 60s look, with this sort of like oddments shelf, parcel shelf on the front there, and very simple sort of like controls. Very simple idea on these early Fiat Pandas. So in this particular UK version, we get an engine capacity of 903 cc's, 45 bhp at 5600 RPM, maximum torque 47 foot-pounds at 3000 RPM, 4-cylinder, 3-bearing cylinder headlight alloy, and cylinder block cast iron, carburetor Weber or Solex single choke downdraft with manual cold start enrichment. We continue with the specifications. I'm not going to read everything, but you can always pause the screen if you need to. Talks about the steering, rack and pinion. Talks about front suspension, independent McPherson strut. Rear suspension, tubular dead axle with leaf springs. Disc front drums rear. Independent brake circuits, etc. It shows the wheel sizes there and tyre sizes. 4-speed gearbox. Major services every 12,000 miles. PVC underbody protection. Opening front quarter lights. Nice to hear. Side repeater indicators. It continues to tell us we get a passenger door mirror, hinged rear side windows, toolkit, reversing lamp, rear screen wipe, fuel capacity 7.75 gallons. And then the interior specifications: inertia reel front seat belts, laminated windscreen, intermittent action wiper, collapsible steering column, heated rear window, tinted windows, and a radio console. Then shows the dimensions. Of course, you can pause the screen if you want to see all that. Boot cubic capacity, curb weights, etc, etc, and even the wheelbase. But moving down further, we can see comfort. Front seat head restraints, which is nice to see on this particular car. Recline front seats, versatile and removable rear seat. We get cloth seat trim, a carpet, heater and booster, fresh air vents. Then goes on to the performance, and just looking at it, you would know it's not going to be a quick car with that little 903cc engine in there. So a maximum speed of 87 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 18.6 seconds. For a town car, I mean, that would be perfectly adequate though for its time. Fuel consumption is what it's going to be all about though. So constant 56, we're getting 55.4 miles per gallon, even showing the maximum towing capacity, which I'm sure not many people would have towed much with their Fiat Panda. We can get options though. We can have a sunroof if we wanted, and we can also have Dunlop de Novo wheels and tyres if we pay a little bit more. We'll end where we began. Fiat's name there and the address there in the UK. Fiat Auto UK Limited, Great West Road, Brentford in Middlesex. That little date code there of September 1982. So there we go, a quick look at this Fiat Panda Brochure for 1982, and like I said, my favourite Pandas are these early models. But thank you so much for watching today. Please share your memories if you actually owned or had a ride in one of these. Please let me know, always interested to hear real stories. But thank you so much for watching today. We'll end as we always do by saying, if you've not done already, please do consider subscribing. It is all completely free. A little box down here somewhere which will be for the original brochure for the Fiat Panda. And you can see how we've changed things a little bit, and possibly over here we might do a little bit of a compilation of other feats we've looked at. But thank you so much for watching today. Please do take care. We'll see you very soon, and goodbye.